Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Information Processing N5. My name is Gan Krishna. I'm the National Sales Manager at Macmillan. We are delighted to be hosting today's webinar with the objective of taking you, the lecturer, through all the changes in the curriculum and making the implementation as easy as possible for you in the classroom. Our sales team have begun visiting your campuses with approved sample copies. Please expect these in the next few days. If you haven't received a sample copy, my email address is in the chat box. You can please contact me, and we'll also be able to provide you with ebook links. Just some information on the platform we're using today. You will see there's a control panel on your right. And if you would like to pose a question, please do so, and our presenter will tackle this either at the end of the presentation or at the appropriate time. Okay, on to our presenter. She is Catherine Shuttleworth. Some background about Catherine. She's the AD of Curriculum Services at Nambiti TVET in Northern KZN. She has 22 years of teaching experience in the sector, having specialized in communication and information processing. Teaching experiences have covered Report 191 and the NCV programs. She's a subject specialist for TVET, also a national marker for communication N5 and N6. I think she's been instrumental in compiling the curriculum document for those two subjects. She's also the co-author for Information Processing N6, the TVET book, TVET first book. So it's over to Catherine to take you through to today's presentation. All the best. Please enjoy the webinar.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this webinar concerning the curriculum changes that we will be implementing as from the second semester of 2021. Hello and welcome to this webinar. And as you have heard, my name is Catherine Shuttleworth. I am one of the developers of the curriculum that you are currently facing implementation for, and will guide you through the changes that have been made. Our meeting etiquette: welcome. If you haven't got yourself a cup of coffee, do that so long and get comfortable so that you will be ready and able to participate. Try and stay focused. We understand that it's difficult to just watch a screen and listen to a voice without the interaction, but hopefully this won't be boring, that you will switch off and go and do something else. Stay focused and engaged. Ask relevant questions in the chat, and these will be addressed either as we're going along or at the end, depending on how it goes. What we are going to do in this webinar, we're reviewing the curriculum changes. We're going to discuss the effects that the changes will have on you in your classroom, in your academic year, and your assessment. And then we're going to show you how the Macmillan TVET first textbook for IP N5 actually will support and assist in your teaching and learning in the classroom. As you may already know, you know this, the subjects have been updated for implementation in 2021. And before we have a look at that, I want you to please understand why the changes were made. The Department of Higher Education and Training were complaining about the poor pass rates for students in N5 and in N6. The campuses and the colleges around South Africa were complaining that the students were just not reaching the required words per minute for the level that they are on. Part of that, and linked to it, was that there was a major complaint about the examination papers being too long and students not finishing it, and a huge outcry about syllabuses being outdated, and do the students really need to be able to do everything that is required of them in the current syllabus. What happened after this is the department appointed a task team of various people across the country. Surprisingly enough, 3 of those people came from Northern KZN. And what happened is we were then put into consultation with various sectors in industry. And the aim was to support the lecturers who teach information processing. What we found in our investigation is that the contents of the actual syllabus itself is still very, very relevant, except the wording in the syllabus was outdated. The industry is specifically the Chartered Accountants of South Africa and some of the business, entrepreneurial business forums said to us that they require people who can type 65 words per minute. And they specifically mentioned not only for personal assistants, but this counts for data capturers, personal assistants, and for coding. And we've all heard the buzzword going around. We heard from last year about 4IR, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the Fifth Industrial Revolution. And with this, students are required and business people are required to be able to type and to type quickly. So what was being tested in audio transcription was unrealistic. In other words, one of the things that I asked the team that sat down was, how many of us would actually ask somebody else to type our CVs for us and us actually dictate a CV to them? And the answer was none. So we had a look at what was in the actual audio transcription syllabus, and we then matched it up with what industry said to us, what they would actually send their secretaries or personal assistants via voice notes or using audio transcription hardware and software. And it was then aligned to what they said. What also came up is that industry uses various programs and methods to complete documentation, which has resulted in the syllabus, including them from this point forward. You'll see that there is an inclusion, for example, for tables, you can do them either in Word or Excel, and the same with your financial statements. And specifically, it is because different industries use the different programs. One of the other things we found is that the examinations were being absolutely flooded. There were more proofreading signs than there was actual typing requirements. And instead of us actually testing the students on what they are there for, to test their touch typing ability, we found that they were being tested more on proofreading and manipulation. So it was adjusted. And also one of the biggest things that came up is that the lecturers were skipping audio transcription totally. So the learners would get to the examinations, they would focus only on word processing, and that was the end of that. The reason being, and this is also very much a very real and relevant excuse, is that the lecturers themselves don't know how to use the audio transcription programs that the various colleges have to offer. So this was causing a problem. So that is why there were the changes that came. Now, our general aims of the curriculum, it's to improve your students' keying in and processing, and to make sure that the student is competent in such a way that he or she will become an absolute asset to the company that they are going to be working for. And we as lecturers need to make sure that our students know the importance of neatness and accuracy in the work that they are presenting. One of the major things that have come out here is excellence in keyboarding skills. What I didn't mention in the previous slide before this last one was one of the major outcries was that students were required to type too many words per minute for their level. But this is where it comes in. The students are failing N5 and N6 because they are not being taught how to touch type in N4. And as you move along from intro to N4 to N5 to N6, they are required to be able to type faster and more accurately as you are going along. So what happens is in N4 you have a lecturer who teaches them the pecking approach, one finger, and that's it. I've actually been in a classroom when a lecturer has said, I don't care how you do it, whether you type with all 10 fingers or one finger, I don't mind, as long as you are able to type what you see. We need to be very careful we don't do that. It is important that we focus on accuracy and speed and make sure that our students are capable of typing between 40 and 45 words per minute. It is also very important to remember the reason why we are training our learners. We are not training them to pass an examination. We are training them to enter into the working world as being self-disciplined, as being loyal, and being able to work independently. And we are actually trying to send out someone who can do what we say they can do. The general aims is work-related learning for students. We need to make sure that we are simulating in a classroom what is being expected of them in industry. So when they eventually do go into the working world, they are updated and know exactly what is going on. And then obviously the assignments must simulate actual office work. Now, what is great about this specific program is that all 4 subjects are interlinked. So communication, information processing, and your office practice all have the same thread going right through them. So I always say to my lecturers, we need to work smarter, not harder. And by consulting with them, you will be able to make sure that everything is covered within their teaching and learning time, so that by the time that they go out into industry, they are ready and able and professional in what they are doing. Students' work must be presentable to industry. I have seen some of the information that our students have typed in the national examinations, and I want to cringe. So we need to make sure that we are sending out students who know what they're doing. That's why we need to ensure that in the classroom we are highlighting the importance of proofreading and correcting errors quickly. They must be able to use the spell checker function. A lot of the students don't do it. They just type and then hope for the best at the end of it. So what is updated in our terminology? Before we had typewriters, it is now computers. And because we are now using computers, we are not typing, we are keying in information. We don't speak about a secretary or typist anymore. We speak about a personal assistant. And also to ensure that we are speaking the same language as editing and publishing companies, we no longer refer to manuscript signs. They are proofreading signs. The duration of your course, you know that your semester, whether it is full-time or part-time, is 17 weeks. Now, for us to successfully complete information processing in 5, 7 hours a week needs to be dedicated to the subject. Now, I want you to have a look at what it says underneath. Your typing technique is 5 hours, and there is a mistake under your audio transcription. It's 2 hours or 3 hours a week. So please make sure that you let the relevant people understand this. We are very much aware that you as lecturers do not set out your timetable and your allocation of hours, but the department has put this very specifically in the syllabus. So when the students do not pass the way that you expect them to pass, you can quote your time allocation as being one of the reasons, because most of the colleges do not allocate hours, they allocate periods. And from the timetables I've seen, it's usually 5 periods a week, once a day. Some periods are half an hour, some periods are 1.5 hours, some periods are 45 minutes. So at the end of the day, the students are not getting in the required hours that they need to complete the course successfully. But with section A, your typing technique, there are 12 different modules. As a lecturer, you need to pay attention to which modules hold the highest weighting. This will show you the importance in the greater scheme of things. In this instance, you will see your module 1 is accuracy and speed and development. Your weighting is 20, which means 14 hours of your semester needs to be dedicated to accuracy and speed development. Your number 2 that comes out is your letters. Now, I just want to remind you that your letters and everything that follows letters, except for module 10 and 11, modules 9, 10, and 11, are paragraphs. So if you've taught your paragraphs properly, you don't have to worry, you've covered them as you go on. A letter is a paragraph. They also do the layout of the letter in communication, and some of it in the updated computer practice N5 syllabus. Not very much, but it's still there. So you have 3 different subjects that this is reinforced in. In your audio transcription, you'll have a look what has now been included. Paragraphs, which is your basis of all of your documentation except for your programs, and your financial statements and your tables. But in the paragraphs, the syllabus states that you also have to have a look at words, different words, difficult words, because what's going to happen now is when a employer dictates something to a student, I promise you he is not saying candidate, initial capital letter. They are going to say things like, I would like you to please type a letter to this person. Please, this is what I want. And the student must have the forethought and knowledge to be able to continue with typing out what is required. So if you have a look, paragraphs and letters and memorandum, your speeches, those all fall under paragraphs. Your highest here is your minutes of your meetings. Your weighting is 30% of this section. So that's what your focus is going to be on, because industry told us flat out that most of them record their minutes, their meetings, and they require their assistants or their PAs or their typing pools to be able to type out. So each document is introduced. And the first learning outcome that is tackled, as I said to you, is going to be the difficult words that are associated with a specific section. One of the words is, for example, status quo. So what has happened now? There has been a removal of all non-essential items, as what is done in industry. And from that, they must understand that, for example, after the end of a sentence, after a full stop, you automatically start with a capital letter. We shouldn't be dictating initial capital letter after a full stop. And a lot of the times, there are various software and hardware programs that are used for audio transcription, and some of these might even include a recording on a WhatsApp. So our students must be able to use different types with audio transcription as well. If you have a look at the allocation, 80% of your syllabus is dedicated to accuracy, and 20% is for display. What you can do as a lecturer, you focus on your accuracy. You tell your students to first type everything that they see except the instructions, and then they go back and they can do whatever is required of them in the display. So they are literally going to be focused specifically on typing, and then the manipulation will come afterwards. This is relevant for both section A and section B. Just keep in the back of your minds that 80% is for accuracy, and that is literally what we are teaching them from the beginning to the end. So your evaluation, it's 40%. Your typing technique in your examination is 200 marks. Your audio transcription is 100 marks. And then your ratio for your ICAS 2 exam is 40-60. As you know, only 40% is needed to pass the subject. I'm also going to just remind you here that when we were learning to type many, many years ago, it was done on a typewriter and there was no correction tape in it, and at that stage, that is why it was only one error is 1 mark. But because the students have a spell checker function, they have had to penalize higher for errors made. So that is why you have such a high penalization rate in an examination or an assessment. So module 1, as I said, the change in the syllabus, the word processing programs have replaced typewriters, and the inclusion of the spell checker function. Again, I'm going to say to you here, this is your most important module. Focus on accuracy and your speed development. One of the best practices that we have picked up in other colleges is we understand that a lot of you are not attending every single day, or your students are not attending every day, and you're very worried about your examinations coming up and that they're not going to be able to type the required words per minute. What you can do, you need to remember that the art of touch typing is muscle memory. You are training your muscles to remember that the A key is used by your pinky finger, your S key is your ring finger, your D key is your middle finger. You do not necessarily need a computer or a typewriter at home to be able to teach the section. You can give your students a printed copy of your keyboard and give them drills to do. For example, a space, a. It's exactly the same as when you are learning how to play an instrument, let it be a keyboard or a guitar. You are literally teaching yourself muscle memory, and students can do this at home, and you can make sure that they will be able to reach their words per minute by practicing at home. In your introduction, this includes your basic computer knowledge of hardware and software. This is also covered in your N4, and it is covered in your N4 and N5 computer practice syllabus. And then your application and your display functions, the same. It is also included in your N4 IP syllabus, and it is included in your N4 and N5 computer practice syllabus. So work smart, work with the lecturers that are teaching those subjects. And also the proofreading signs come in with your introduction as well. In module 3, the business and sales and circular letters of promotion, that combines the old modules for business letters, components of official letters, circular letters, and the promotion of sales. The official circulars on letterheads has been removed, but what you also need to remember that with this section, a student must be able to create their own letterhead, number 1. Number 2, they must be able to use a letterhead. What has been removed from this section is a hard copy of a letterhead. From now on, all of their letterheads will be electronic, so they will be given the letterhead, and they must then know underneath the letterhead you enter twice, and you put in today's date, and then you continue from there on. This is literally being done because most of the companies we spoke to either use templates or have electronic letterheads going forward. So I'm confused as to why we would still be using a printed letterhead for a student to then put into the printer to print on when it's not going to be done in industry any longer. Your presentation application has now also been included. This includes things like speech, lectures, webinars, online instructions, and it is linked to your communication N5. This is something that they will be asked either to develop or to present on their own, depending on what line of work they are going to. So this is now very much a buzzword in the IP circles. Your formal invitations, they've moved from 4% their weighting to 5%, and you must be able to do them both. They must be able to create them in a word processing document as well as templates online. And just keep in mind as well that with the updating of the computer practice N5 syllabus, they've included Notepad as well as a word processing program. So this could also be included in our information processing. Module 6, your notices of meetings and agendas. The only thing that's really changed here is they've changed the word ordinary format to standard format, and then there are obviously action columns that can be used or have been included for your minutes of your meetings. I haven't really seen them for a notice and agenda, but I do know that they are there. Then with your minutes of the meetings, it has become a little bit heavier, and this is because this is what industry wants. They want our learners who come in there and are able to do the minutes of a meeting using the correct format, understanding the difference between direct and indirect speech in first and third person. So we need to make sure we work with our N5 communication lecturers to do this. They can actually do exercises in the N5 communication classroom and then type them out in the IP class. Your reports are very important. While in a TVET sector, we don't do as many reports as what people are asked to do in industry. This is something that they are going to be able or will be asked to do: an incident report, an accident report, a feedback report. This is very, very important because they must be able to create them and to populate them. You'll see the new didactical directive. It must be linked to communication and to the financial management course, just to make sure you cover enough of them so that students know what is being done. In Module 9, your weighting has changed from 10 to 5. Programs must be keyed in on an A4 paper using columns or tables. And then what has come in the N5 syllabus now is your itinerary. Please remember the difference between a program and an itinerary. A program is a sequence of events for a function such as a wedding or a reception, whereas your itinerary is a sequence of events for travel. You can also link up with your travel programs here to make sure that they are doing the right thing. Your financial statements. There is a big buzz about the financial statements. You can either do them, you can teach them in Microsoft Word or Excel. The Excel method is quicker and an easier approach for the learners to complete, because the inserting of the borders becomes so much easier, and the line spacing between the columns and the layout is also much easier. One of the challenges that Tashana TVET brought to our attention was the fact that when you are typing in one of your cells and you need to make sure that you are typing text, the program keeps throwing it into numbers. And Tashana mentioned to us, if you use an apostrophe before keying in information, specifically a date, it automatically tells the cell that you are putting in text. So there is a good practice to be used from now onwards. Also, one of the questions that came out here is why? Why do we have to teach them how to use a spreadsheet program as well? And the reason being is that we are trying to make them more relevant to industry. And there are very few industries left who are using Word to do financial statements and tables. So that is why it has been included going forward. The same can be said for your tabular statements. Beforehand, when we used to use a typewriter and we had to do a tabular statement on an A3 piece of paper, you would first type everything on page 1, and then you would insert page 2 and try and align everything, and then you would type. That's been taken out now because you can just do it on an A3 piece of paper. So no 2 sheets of A4 paper are needed. And then your standard layouts, that, as you know, it will tell you exactly what is required of you in the textbook with each of the activities with tabular statements. Your paragraphs in an African language. These have been changed now. It's very specific. It's intermediate paragraphs, so you know you're going to get a heading and maybe a bullet that's coming in here. One of the other things that also came out here is the students who were actually typing the exam would say, no, that's the spelling was incorrect in this paragraph, so they corrected the spelling as they were typing. The purpose of this is to make sure a student can actually touch type. Because if you try and type a paragraph in a language you do not understand and you are using the pecking method, it's going to be very frustrating and very difficult. So we need to make sure that our students are able to touch type, and we need to drill into them, type what you see, and then they will get it right. I often used to tell my students, first thing you do after your accuracy is you type your African language, because it's your Mahala marks. And then you go and you start with your letters and your tables and so forth. Right, the changes that have happened to audio transcription. The content is unchanged in Module 1, 2, and in Module 4. In Module 1, your initial instruction, even though the topic weighting is 8, you must remember your initial instructions are all the instructions you are going to give them. This goes right through every single module. So just keep that in the back of your mind while you are busy. In your paragraphs, the weighting has changed from 9% to 15% because this is going to prepare them for what is coming. Your letters, your applications, circular letters, letters of promotion, and your memoranda, again, this has changed from 12% to 20%. There has been a combination of Module 3 and 4 and Module 6 from the old syllabus. Audio cassette has been changed to audio transcription hardware or software. Different colleges use different things. And then your changed learning content, you know that every time that a new module is introduced, the first learning outcome is challenging words taken from the various letters. And then obviously the letters of promotions, your sales, your letter of application, and your memoranda are new learning content in this module. With your speeches and lectures, it's moved from 3% to 17% because this is something that is more than likely going to be asked of them when they are in industry. Your Module 5, your notices of meetings and agenda. Your notices must be either in columns or tables for action on agendas. What I'm going to say to you is make sure that the students know the differences between a special meeting, an annual general meeting, and I can't remember your third one, but they must know the differences between it, and they must know the layouts, so that when they get to the audio transcription, they know exactly what to do. They're just literally typing what they're hearing. And then Module 6, if you have a look, this is where your big jump comes in. You have changed from 11% to 30%. Learners must be able to type what they hear, and this is where it is going to be the most important, is in this section. Now what we're going to do, after we take a deep breath, we are going to have a look at how the TVET first book has been aligned to the curriculum. The author of this particular book is Esti Kruger. Obviously, you've been told I am the presenter. Esti Kruger is an experienced TVET lecturer as well as a national marker and an author. So we rate what she is doing quite highly. The TVET first information textbook. It starts with an overview of the outcomes, which is great. So your students as well as your lecturers know exactly what is going to come in. And then your starter activity. Every single module has a starter activity. The purpose of this is to take students from the known into the unknown. So what they've already been capable of doing, and then we start taking them, okay, let's remind you, this is what you can do. Now let's have a look at what we can add to that. It's called the scaffolding approach, and it works brilliantly, especially with learners that are not great at typing. There are plenty of examples that show you exactly what needs to be done. I am a particular fan of them showing you what to do in Word and then what to do in Excel, or how to do exactly the same thing in Excel. There are more than enough activities to ensure that your keyboarding skills are done, that your accuracy is done. You should be doing at least 5 minutes of drills every single day at the beginning of your lesson. And I always used to do a 10-minute accuracy test on a Friday with my students. Every Friday, without hesitation, that's what we used to do. And if I had any students who finished their activities before anyone else, so your foster typists, I would also make sure that they went back and then did drill exercises to sharpen their abilities and to hone their skills. What is fantastic about this book, there's a flow diagram that shows you exactly what you need to do to support your speed and accuracy. So students can keep track of where they are and what they need to do to make sure that they are successful in this. The proofreading signs, not only do they learn them, but they are throughout your textbook, and they look like what is exactly in the examination. So the standardized signs. So it won't be a situation of your students going into your exam and there is a proofreading sign that they have no idea what it is. It's been aligned to exactly what the examiners are using for the exams now. At the end of every module, there's a summary of the work completed so that you can make sure with your students that they have covered everything and understand everything. Don't just at the end of a module say, do you understand? Because you're going to have the reaction, yes, I understand. If you go through them one by one and say, do you understand this? Do you understand this? Your students are more lenient and more open to say, you know what, ma'am, I don't really understand what they mean about date in descending order. What I really enjoy here, and as I said, you work smart and not hard. At the end of every module, there is a summative assessment. Now, we know that you have to do an assignment and a test and an internal exam. And we know that you are not allowed to use old exam papers because it's considered plagiarism. But in this textbook, you have a summative assessment at the end of every module. And there is nothing stopping you from using the summative assessment from 3 different modules to put together your ICAS test 1 or your ICAS assignment 1. Your internal exam, I will encourage you to develop on your own so that this enriches you and capacitates you so that you can become an examiner. The special features. There are vocabulary notes going right through. There are exam tips going right through, which is great so that you know this is what is accepted, this is not what is accepted. At the end of your book, there's a glossary. So if there's something you want to look up, you know exactly where to go. The highlights of this textbook. It is aligned to your curriculum. If you take out your syllabus and you take out your textbook, you will see step by step that it has been followed and that 100% of the work has been covered. I am going to say to you that as a lecturer, the only thing that you will need to substitute, and you will need to substitute this regardless of what textbook you are going to be using, is additional drills and additional accuracy tests. And that is just to enrich your students at the end of the day. There is a focus on improving your accuracy and your speed. It incorporates new functions and programs throughout this book, and all of your proofreading signs are there. I have already said to you that the proofreading signs that are in the textbook are 100% the same as what is going to be tested on in the exam. There are plenty of practice examples and activities going right through the textbooks. There are very useful features that include your vocab, your notes and tips. And then, as I said before, there is a summative assessment at the end of each module, And there is a memorandum or a marking guideline in the lecturer's guide. The lecturer's guide also gives you helpful hints on how to teach different sections. And because of this, this is the textbook for you. I'm telling you right now, you will be so happy with this book. Gan, I'm sure that we have time for feedback.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Catherine, for a lovely presentation. Lecturers, this is the opportunity to pose a question to Catherine. Anything you want to tackle about the new curriculum, about the textbook, about something that you need clarity on, please seize this opportunity. Just raise your hand and we'll give you the opportunity to pose your question. Or feedback, how you found today's session. Was it valuable? Okay, we just had some feedback from Eloise Spritz, who says, really valuable, thank you. Thank you, Eloise, for your feedback. Can we move on to the next one? Any questions you may have?
You can also ask us best practices, please. This is if you have the platform, do it.
And share best practices as well. That's so important. Eloise wants to know, will we have access to exam papers? I know it's in the book. I don't know if you want to mention that again. There is a mock exam.
There is a mock exam, but I'm also going to, what I used to do with the students is on my own free will and time on a Saturday, I used to come in, and every single Saturday we used to do an exam paper just to make sure that the students were ready for it. But if you also look online, with COVID-19, a lot of the previous exam papers have been put onto the web, and it's for free. So you don't have to rely on your senior lecturer or your HOD to get them. They are there. Your last exam paper for information processing N5 was very much in line with what we are going to be asking going forward. The examiner for N5 was part of the team. I was the one who developed this particular syllabus, and she was the one who verified it. And she said to me that from when we did this syllabus, the exams changed slightly to start incorporating this, so it won't be a big shock to the students. It's going to look like it always did, if that helps.
Okay, next person, please pose your question, raise your hand, and just unmute yourself and you can speak directly to Catherine. Go ahead, Bethel, just unmute yourself, please. Yes, Bethel, your hand is up. Do you have a question? You just need to unmute yourself.
Oh, yes.
Right,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
very much. I was trying to unmute, but it wasn't allowing me.
Yes, you gotta get used to these things.
Yes, I need to ask about the tabular statement, the financial statement. Yes, I saw there it includes Excel. Does that mean they will do financial statement on Excel and no longer in Word, or Excel is recommended?
Bethel, what we have done is we have given you, as the lecturer and the student, the opportunity to choose which one will be easier to complete. We recommend you teach both methods, and then you give the learners the opportunity to choose which one will work best for them. It is easier, I promise you, it is easier to do this specifically with your lines and your borders and getting your line spacing right and your spacing between your columns. It is easier to do in Excel than it is in Word. Again, I'm going to remind you that at the end of the day, 80% of your question is accuracy. So you need to focus on typing everything out first. That's my advice to you. But both the textbook will show you how to do it in Microsoft Word as well as a few exercises in Excel.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, I do believe that it will be very easier in Excel as compared to Microsoft Word. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more hands? Louise, we've dealt with yours. Is there anything else you'd like to find out? Okay, great. I'm not seeing any further feedback or questions. We'll give you another 30 seconds to make up your mind if you'd like to ask something, and then we'll close today's presentation. So I'd like to see a hand up or a question, and we'll give you the opportunity to speak to Catherine.
While we are waiting, I am going to bring you some news of good tidings. I do know that the DHET is currently preparing a how-to teach touch typing, how to lay out a letter, how to so there is going to be training coming. I can't tell you when the training will be coming due to COVID-19, but there is something to look forward to, because what we realized also is that lecturers aren't developing their own work because they do not know how to work out the words per minute for the N5 level. So there will be a how-to workshop coming up, how to set an exam paper, how to set a question paper, all of that. So something good to look forward to.
That's a good heads up for the lecturers, Catherine. I don't see any further questions, so shall we close today's presentation? Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Catherine, for a wonderful presentation. I hope that lecturers will take back to the classroom what you've discussed with them today. And rest assured that TVET First textbook covers everything you need for best classroom practice.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was my pleasure.
Bye-bye, everyone.